Valyrian Steel is a form of metal that was forged in the days of the mighty Valyrian Freehold. When fashioned into bladed weapons, the steel can hold an especially keen edge, remaining sharp forever without the need for honing. It's confirmed that House of the Dragon will feature 3 Valyrian swords in Season 1, with a few joining later on in the show. Invented in Targaryen's original home Valyria, these swords are of unparalleled quality. George R. R. Martin says that if the two fighters of equal skill and power met on the field, the one with Valyrian Steel in his hands will win. That's how much of a change it makes. Almost all of the legendary warriors of Westeros have wielded it. What makes Valyrian Steel sword so unique is that it's extremely rare, and its blades are lighter, stronger and sharper in comparison to ordinary steel. Valyrian Steel, possibly formed with dragons and definitely forged with magic and spells, was manufactured in the Valyrian Freehold of old. According to legend, Valyrian Steel was made with dragon fire and infused with magical spells, some say with blood magic, literally requiring fire and blood, like House Targaryen's motto. After the doom of Valyria, just as all the Valyrians and their dragons except Targaryens and their dragons, all was destroyed, including the secret of making the Valyrian Steel. Valyrian Steel was always costly, but it became considerably more so when there was no more Valyria, the secret of its making lost with the doom. Only the greatest weaponsmiths can reforge swords from existing Valyrian steel, making those remaining weapons highly treasured and extremely rare. However, there are still plenty of them in Westeros, and especially in this time period of the Targaryen Civil War, which includes the 2 that Targaryens owned, which we never had the opportunity to see in Game of Thrones as they got lost in meantime. So let's see which 3 Valyrian swords will House of the Dragon feature in Season 1, and which will join in the later seasons. Targaryen's Blackfire and Dark Sister, along with Stark's Scythe, are the 3 Valyrian steel swords we'll see in Season 1. Orphan Maker, Lamentation, Vigilance, and Lady Forlorn are the names of the remaining Valyrian swords that will appear by the end of the series. Let's start with the most famous of them all, and possibly the most legendary of them all, House Targaryen's Blackfire. Blackfire is a Valyrian steel sword that originally belonged to Aegon I Targaryen. Blackfire is a fabled hand-and-a-half longsword of Valyrian steel, once wielded by Aegon the Conqueror during the Targaryen conquest of the Seven Kingdoms. Afterward, it became the treasured ancestral blade of House Targaryen, carried by kings and princes. During the story of House of the Dragon and therefore during the Targaryen Civil War, it belonged to Aegon II. Aegon II Targaryen's possession of Blackfire enhanced his legitimacy against his rival, Rhaenyra Targaryen, during the Dance of the Dragons. Before and after this, Blackfire was wielded by many great warriors, and no doubt seeing such a legendary sword will be amazing. Coming as the second Valyrian sword we'll see in Season 1 is also from House Targaryen, and as you probably guessed it by now, it's Dark Sister. The Dark Sister is the name of the famous longsword of Valyrian steel once belonging to Visenya Targaryen, the sister wife of Aegon the Conqueror. A great warrior, she used it in battle as well as riding her dragon during the War of Conquest. In our story, it's used by another legendary warrior prince named Daemon Targaryen. Prince Daemon Targaryen was given Dark Sister by King Jaehaerys I for his prowess. Sir Criston Cole defeated Daemon in a tourney for King Viserys I's ascension, knocking Dark Sister from the prince's hand with a morning star. Daemon wields Dark Sister during his war for the Stepstones. In 115 AC, he defeats the Borvosi betrothed of Laena Velaryon with the blade in a duel. During the Dance of the Dragons, and during one of the most epic fights in Westerosi history, Daemon fights against Aemond Targaryen with the blade in the battle above the God's Eye, leaping from the back of his dragon Xerxes to plunge Dark Sister into Aemond's eye. When Aemond's bones were found some years later in the waters of the God's Eye, Dark Sister was still thrust hilt deep through his eye socket. Cannot help but think of this Daemon statement that's written in Fire and Blood book. Dark Sister was made for nobler tasks than slaughtering sheep. She has a thirst for blood, Daemon Targaryen to Corlys Velaryon. The third and final Valyrian steel sword we'll see in Season 1 of House of the Dragon is the one you've already seen in Game of Thrones. It's House Stark's ancestral great sword dice. It's as wide across as a man's hand, and 6 feet long and taller even than Robb Stark. The blade is Valyrian Steel, spell-forged and dark as smoke with deep rippling. The name Ice is a legacy from the Age of Heroes, and predates the current sword. About 400 years before King Robert I Baratheon's reign, the Valyrian Steel greatsword was spell-forged in Valyria and acquired by House Stark, who named it after that legacy. During House of the Dragon, it's wielded by legendary Cregan Stark, who supports Rhaenyra Targaryen, and marches south to support her claim. Lord Cregan Stark will use ice to behead all the traitors when he arrives in King's Landing, time in the capital which became known as the Hour of the Wolf. Lord Stark will also use it in his fight against Aemon the Dragonite, who is said to be House Targaryen's finest warrior, and about whom you still hear songs all over Westeros. Those are the 3 we will see in Season 1, but later seasons will feature many more of them. One of them is Lamentation, a famed Valyrian steel sword that belongs to House Royce. Sir William Royce wields the blade during the Dance of the Dragons. The sword is torn from the hand of Willem, however, when he is killed during the Ride of the Seven. With Willem's death, the sword is carried off, never to be found again. However, some rumors claim that Sir Warwick Wheaton slashed a wing off of Syrax with a Valyrian steel sword, likely Lamentation, during the storming of the Dragon Pit. Next sword that will appear later on is Vigilance. This Valyrian steel longsword belongs to House Hightower. Lord Dormund Hightower wields the blade during the Targaryen Civil War fighting for King Aegon II. After the battle on the Honeyvine, he used it to knight his squire, the king's brother, Prince Daeron, dubbing him Sir Daeron the Daring, for turning the battle in his favor with his dragon Tessarion. Lord Dormund is killed by Roddy the Ruin, leader of Stark's elite army Winterwolves, at the Battle of Tumbleton. It's unknown what happened to Vigilance afterward. Another sword we'll see later on is Orphan Maker, a Valyrian steel longsword with a black blade belonging to House Roxton. Sir Jon Roxton wields the blade during the Dance of the Dragons, while fighting for King Aegon II Targaryen and the Greens. During the battle on the Honeyvine, he used it to deliver a fatal wound to Lord Owen Costane. During the Second Battle of Tumbleton, Jon slew Hugh Hammer with Orphan Maker, splitting him from groin to throat. Shortly thereafter, he was killed by Hugh's men in a 10-against-1 fight. The sword came into possession of Lord Unwin Peake. When Peake became Hand of the King during the regency of young King Aegon III Targaryen in 133 AC, he drew Orphan Maker, declaring that unlike the previous Hand, the blind and crippled Sir Tywin Lannister, he could still wield a sword. The sword's current whereabouts are unknown. The final and one of the most legendary Valyrian steel swords in Westeros that we'll see is Lady Forlorn. It's the ancestral longsword of House Corbray. Lady Forlorn is traditionally passed down from lord to lord, but examples of lords lending the blade to a son or a brother for their lifetime, only to have it returned to the lord afterward, have been recorded in the history of the house. Lady Forlorn has a heart-shaped ruby in its pommel. Its Valyrian steel is smoke grey in appearance. The name Lady Forlorn is a legacy from the coming of the Andals, and predates the current sword. Robbar II Royce, the High King of the First Men of the Vale, claimed the first Lady Forlorn after slaying Quail Corbray, the King of the Fingers and the Andal leader. Robbar wielded Lady Forlorn during the Battle of the Seven Stars, using it to kill Torgold Tullet, and a decoy dressed as Sir Ardys Saryn. The Corbrays claimed that Sir Jaime Corbray slew Robbar in the battle, allowing them to reclaim the First Lady Forlorn. At some point, the Corbrays acquired a Valyrian steel sword, which they named Lady Forlorn in honor of the ancient sword. Sir Corwin Corbray, the brother of Lord Lewin Corbray, wields Lady Forlorn during the Dance of the Dragons. Corwin, one of the regents for Aegon III, is slain by a crossbowman at Runestone, after drawing Lady Forlorn on Lord Gonthor Royce. Those are all the Valyrian steel swords that we'll see in the House of the Dragon. The most legendary of them, Ice, Blackfire and Dark Sister, you'll see in Season 1, with others coming and going throughout the series. The Game of Thrones prequel series House of the Dragon, based on the book Fire and Blood, will air in 2022 on HBO. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up and I hope to see you in the next one. Peace!